it's Heather Smith here, and you're listening to Cloud Stories, a podcast exploring the accounting and business apps community. Today I'm bringing you a webinar that I hosted on behalf of Weel for the CFO Summit that they held late May. So Weel is a streamlined spend management solution. So it enables you to issue virtual corporate cards to your employees. So it's a very, very handy solution that sits on your mobile device. And I strategically partner with them and was fortunate enough to be involved with this summit that they ran and moderating this session. So I think the session is quite self-explanatory, quite an interesting discussion. And just before I hand over to that, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review if you've got a moment, and subscribe to the Accounting Apps newsletter that you can find at heathersmithau.com. And I hope you enjoy this discussion.
Hello and welcome to the Australian CFO Summit, Protecting Profits in 2023. We're thrilled to have you join us for this afternoon session, Finance Technology ROI 2023, Where to Invest. So my name is Heather Smith. I'm a chartered accountant. I run a digital management accounting practice since early 2000s, specialise in navigating the business apps ecosystem. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our event sponsors, Weel, Hudled, Fathom, CFO Magazine, Easy Collect, Alana Bennett, and Excel Cloud, who is currently in a session competing with us, but hopefully you're here, so you're winning, as well as the other sponsors. Thank you very much for supporting us. We want this session to be as interactive as possible, so feel free to ask questions. Do that in the chat area or do it in the Q&A area, and I will ask panelists the questions as they come through. So without further ado, let's get into the session. We're here to explore the key tools that help money run smoothly in your business. Our experts will cover spend management solutions, revenue collection, and cash flow forecasting. So we'll discuss benefits and drawbacks of various tools and provide real-world examples and case studies to illustrate what works well and what to avoid. Our panelists have in-depth knowledge about which apps to invest in and why. So this promises to be a really enlightening session, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed strategic tech procurement decisions for your business. Thank you. So the poll has jumped up, and if you can answer how many people that you have in your business, so we can just get an idea how to tailor our questions there.
I'm interested if there's any 500 plus people. There we go.
Ooh.
2 people are working for 500 plus organizations. That's cool.
Fantastic. So it looks like 40% of the audience are sitting around that 200 to 500 marks. That's very interesting. So we'll try to tailor our answers towards that, but understanding there's different groups and sizes in the audience. So can I ask each of our panelists to share who they are, where they're from, and what brings them to this discussion today? Can I start with you, June? And we'll sort of go around and you just jump in as you wish to.
Oh, hello, everybody, and thanks, Heather, and thanks everyone for hosting. Thanks the team for hosting. Yep. So my background's from banking. So I've come from a corporate banking background, doing payment systems and credit analysis, and I currently run a financial modeling company, and our focus is on three-way cash flow forecasts.
I'll jump in next. Hi, everyone. I'm Tyler Caskey, a partner at the Bean Counters. I started my early days in consulting and then did about 12, 13 years as a financial controller, commercial manager and CFO, and really just found the love of helping businesses install new technology and automate their finance processes. And one of the topics today about how to get the return on investment. So, I think I've put probably about 50 proposals to boards on, spend and change in my time. Not all of them got through, unfortunately, but that's, you got to try. So for the last 3.5 years, I've been consulting 2 businesses on how to install better finance, expense management, consolidation, payroll, HR. Technology, and we're just a nice little team of 6 here in Sydney. Most of us are either ex-CFOs, but there's a few of us are like more on that technology side as well. And, big fan of Weel and quite a few of the sponsors today. I think there's a good panel here.
I'll go. Hi, everyone. I'm Laurel Gray, and I lead the digital advisory division at RSM. RSM is an accounting and consulting firm, and we have 32 offices across the country. And in my role as leading the digital advisory team, it's to really take care of our clients and make sure that they have absolutely the most amount of comfort around the software solutions that they pick. That could be in the finance space, so helping to streamline and automate the whole finance function around Xero, or up into the tier 2 space. We also have a NetSuite consulting practice. Or it could be out into the operations and sales and marketing of the business, and making sure that all of those applications really work together well.
I'll jump in the last one. So I'm Alex. I'm one of the founders of Hudled. I started my career in accounting, have sort of gone through the sort of founder journey and path now. What we're building is a way for finance teams to get better insight on what software tools they're using. And we're also helping finance use data to make better decisions about what to buy at what price. And so I think we can all relate to that pain of we need to contact sales or go through arduous negotiations with vendors. And we take all that away by saying, here's what 102 other companies like you were paying. And we sort of take any of the ambiguity around buying and managing software. So that's a bit about me.
Nice. And you're a sponsor of the event as well.
And a sponsor as well.
Thank you so much, Alex, for bringing us here today. So I can see from the chat area, we have people from New Zealand all the way through to Perth. So hello to everyone. As I move to the next section, I'd like to ask Mackenzie to launch a poll. And if you can share with us, how painful is the expense reimbursement process in your business?
Well, I'm interested if there's smooth sailing. I walked into a few extremely painfuls in my time, that's for sure. Like Deloitte was definitely up there on the painful process.
Yeah, and where's the response?
Great place to work, though.
Excellent. So there's room for improvement and frustrating. So 11% have smooth sailing, and no one's sitting at the extremely painful, which is great, but does look like there are some issues and pain there. So excellent. So thank you for sharing that. So let's initially talk about procurement as a strategy. By approaching procurement strategically, an organisation can make more informed decisions, minimise risks, and ultimately get better value from their investments. So what are the key elements to developing your procurement strategy? I'd like to open that up. Who'd like to jump in there?
I'll kick it off. I think
Okay.
I'm the one that raised this one, Heather. And it's the reason I brought this up, I guess, before the session is because it doesn't matter how small you are as a business. You still need to really think about what is your strategy for buying software, all the way from identifying initially what your current processes are and those pain points, all the way through to who's going to make that final sign-off decision and how are they going to do it. So if you're listening to this going, oh, look, we've only have 10 people or maybe you have 20 people in the team. Do we really have to go to this level of effort? I think yes. So before I talk, I guess, about some of those elements, does anybody else want to add anything in around why is it so important?
Yeah, I love that topic. There are times when I procure with a sniff test. There are times when I do it without permission. And there are times when I go through the full rigor and full process. And as a finance leader, you've got to know which one to do. I remember coming into a $30 million business running on QuickBooks installed, and it was breaking. And it was breaking because of the rounding. So we moved them over to Xero. And while the board was like having a chat about the procurement process, I put the first month on my personal credit card and got Xero up and running because I knew it would work. I found the connector between their main system and pumped it in. But then when we moved on to the reporting function, which impacted the whole business rather than just the team I was contracted to, really needed to go through, as Laurel said, like the proper kind of process, sometimes. And also I don't mind losing $50. Like if I've got a $50 sniff test to find if something works, I trial probably 2 or 3 systems a month, and you can immediately tell like what's a good or what's a bad, kind of system that you might want to go to those next stages. So I really employ like a quick sniff test, and also trust your gut on, what projects, what systems you can install.
Yeah, I think to add on to that as well, a lot of the challenges, especially since the audience here is more so mid-market, the hard part is you can't always try things before you actually buy it. Although a lot of software tools now enable you to set up your own environment quite quickly and play around a little bit, a lot of the time when they see that you're part of a bigger company, you need to go through a sales process, watch the demo, and then it's not until you're all the way down a pretty arduous sales process before you realize that you actually want to do it. And so that can be quite frustrating and painful. What we've generally seen is that you set up a good procurement process where anything under a couple $100, you can generally get through approval without finance having to pretty much look at everything step by step. But yeah, once you're going into the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars per year, you do need to put a bit more rigor into that process. And from what we've seen, it's largely still quite unavoidable at this stage to do those bigger purchases without going through that process.
Yeah, and you've got to know if it's a month-to-month or an annual contract, because places that like grab your credit card, like Adobe is just, they're a killer at like everything. They try to put you annual on everything, so if you're a CFO and you sign up your team of 5 to Adobe, you're clicking that button. It'll only take a month to month out. But if you try to cancel, if your team goes from 5 to 4, they're going to sting you with the rest of that cost. So you got to be really smart on that as well.
Some good points to share there. Laurel, can I come back to you? As a business scales, I'm not sure if you had something more to add to that last one, but as a business scales its operations, it incurs additional costs, which are referred to as step-up costs. How do you navigate those step-up costs as part of your procurement strategy? As the accountant or the CFO, how do you sell it to the board? And what are those magic documents that you use to convince them to incur step-up costs?
I'll try and answer that question, I guess, as part of what is the typical procurement strategy that I see businesses undertaking, and how do they actually convince the board in the first place that they need to make a change? And this is going to sound maybe really simple, but I see people forgetting about this all the time, is really sitting down and working out in the beginning of the process, who is going to make the decision and what are the evaluation criteria actually going to be. All right. So it sounds simple, but thinking through, okay, what's my total cost of ownership going to actually be across subscriptions, across additional charges, potentially support, and then of course, implementation costs usually in year one. What is that implementation plan going to look like? What's the product roadmap? How many users are on the product? Are there similar customers that are using that product within my industry or maybe in similar industries with similar use cases? So folks totally forget about that in the beginning. And I want to draw that back to when you actually go back to the board or to whoever is going to be making that final decision, how you present that through some kind of evaluation summary, whether you're looking at just one solution and actually doing a fit gap analysis, kind of like you were alluding to, Tyler, with your sniff test, or you're going to market and you're looking at a few different solutions, making sure that all of that information is documented throughout the process so that, as you say, Heather, when you get to that point of, okay, we're scaling up, oh, there's all these hidden costs and hidden fees from the vendors or whatever, you actually have that mitigated in advance, or at least you've got a document to go back to.
And those hidden fees, like they're everywhere. Like I was doing working with a really good recruitment business yesterday, and they were looking at their recruitment, HR, kind of payroll system, and we were like, this seems like a pretty good price. And they were like, oh yeah, we were like, what else have they got? And they're like, oh, for text messages we charge. And we're like, can we do it? Can we not have text messages? And they were like, yes, you can, but it's there's a lot of little hidden charges in those processes for sure. And I always look at payment charges as well. So if they mandate Stripe PayPal, those types of things. If you're sending out bills, are you able to set the thing like Xero has that you can say, hey, the customer pays that excess cost if they want as well. It's good. Laurel, you're so right about planning before you go to the CEO or board. I think that's what a good CFO, head of operations, should be doing is asking those questions and getting you prepared for those questions before you go up a level. Because so many of us are just focused on the pain. We're not focused on the 3-year plan. We're not focused on the 5-year plan.
Yeah. And I think to add to that too, and this is for everyone to add to, I find that businesses really overestimate what the board or the executives know about what's happening, first of all, and secondly, what the new solution is actually going to do. And it's almost like they just glaze over all the education component and just jump right into, this is why you need to do it. Here's a quick report, instead of really taking them on that journey.
Yeah, I like to do the time cost of my team. I came into a business once and the IT guy spent the first hour of every morning clearing email logs so the email server would stay up. And I was like, why have we not changed this? And he goes, I talked to the boss once about changing to the online Microsoft server. And I was like, all right, man, let's build a business case, And so when we went to the CEO, same thing. Like Laurel, I said, hi, Claire, we're going to talk to you about saving Jeremy an hour of time. And immediately she just went, yep, cool, I'm on board.
Thank you, both of you, for sharing that with us. Can we jump into the conversation around expense management solutions? I know it's already going off in the chat area, but to start us off, Alex, could you run us through some of the solutions that are available in the expense management solutions landscape?
Yeah, sure thing. So my experience is generally pulling data from two places. One is I also run a community of finance leaders called Finance and Tech, and we survey the members regularly to get feedback around what products and tools they're using. And then also from the back end of Hudled, we can see what people are using and how much they're spending. So from what my perspective is, I think the expense management space is still quite fragmented. You've got products like Zero Expenses, Dex, Approval Max that are still dominant and being quite widely used across SMB and mid-market. And now with the evolution of these virtual cards and these products now going feature to feature on parity, then you have a lot of people still doing the same thing. But one thing that is like glaringly obvious and one of the sort of bigger trends that we saw sort of 2 years ago or 3 years ago when we first started Hudled was that many companies are still reliant on using their CEOs or founders' credit card. And it's not until they get to that point of 20, 30 plus people where they actually consider doing it. So it's like the pain of having to do expenses manually is like very clear to everyone here that has to go around asking. I don't need to dive into that part anymore. I would also say on the other side of the trends that we're seeing is companies are more so now going down at a more granular level into that sort of long tail of expenses. So you've got products now that are doing specifically things around travel, specifically around physical asset registers. And so in this environment now where the $5,000 saving, which no one cared about last year when markets were frothy and people were raising money, is now this thing that's front of center where if I can save $5,000 by doing A, B, and C, people are going to jump at that. And so the overarching theme here is no one wants to go through and adopt new things just for the sake of it. So it always comes back to an ROI first. And that's probably like the state of play from where I've seen things. So yeah, curious if anyone has got a different view or has seen other trends.
Oh man, the play of walking into a business and the CEO loves their Amex. And I'm like, cool. Do they know how much time it costs your $200,000 financial controller to chase you for receipts? Do you know what else they could be doing with the time? How much do you really value those points? Those types of things are like hugely impactful to finance businesses. My trick on coming into a business like that, where they're like, I love my Amex. I'm like, cool. It's not good tech anymore. And I don't give any explanation. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, this been surpassed. And then I just wait. And I leave it for a couple of days. And then I get their receipts and I'm like, oh, man, it takes so much time. And they're like, They're like, is there a better way? I'm like, yeah, there's a few, and just wait until you've got a little bit of leverage, like create a bit of interest and then hit them with hey, there's something like Weel. There's other products that like really make this good, So that one, Alex, I find is the absolute, that's the thing CEOs hold on to is the Amex and the points. They love it.
Yeah, if the owners are very hell-bent on points, just by putting your AWS and Google ad spend, it still represents the largest piece. So if that's the hill they want to die on, you can put everything else through a product like Weel or an equivalent, and then just run the two major things off it. And then they still get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I just tell the CEOs, hey, we're giving you a Weel card. And they're like, oh, I don't really want it. I've got my Amex. So I'm like, hey, it's a Visa or a MasterCard or whatever it is. Amex isn't accepted everywhere. Just have it. Just grab it. Pretty easy to use. And then all of a sudden, the use just drops in the Amex and goes up in the Weel. Piece of cake.
So I think Tyler's sharing with us his magic change management playbook. So for anyone who needed that, they need to get that section to just run through those words and that luring in of change management. So let me go to Laurel. You stated that if we asked you 3 years ago if you thought there'd be a huge change in the applications available on the market, yes, you would have said yes. But now you can see there are some very clear winners in the industry and a solid path to ROI for SMEs through to government agencies looking to leverage SaaS solutions. With this in mind, what are the solutions you're exploring for your clients?
Oh, well, before I go into that, I want to just kind of wrap up on what Tyler and Alex were saying. And the people watching this, likely you're the cloud champions and you're looking for insights on how do you bring this change in. So it's really just documenting what are people doing. So if it's a spend management thing, you sit down, you are the change management person in your organization, likely sit down and interview those folks. What are the 5 things that they're doing? How long is it taking them to scan in those receipts, type in the information into that Excel document, as is happening with one of my clients at the moment, who's then preloading prepaid Australia Post debit cards for all of their 65 staff to go out and spend money on.
Wow.
And then sending those Excel spreadsheets by email back to the finance team. But we know exactly what's happening because we go in and we, as a third party, we document all of that. Internally, it might not be as extreme, but really break down what are those processes. So you've got the evidence there. Even if you don't know how to calculate the ROI, it at least is going to give you that information. And I guess to go to your point, Heather, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, oh, look, I would have thought there would have been a huge change in the available Xero add-ons across the finance space, but it kind of seems, I'm interested in your input as well, team. It seems like it's kind of steadied off and there are some clear winners around what accounting firms and bookkeeping firms are using and what clients are using direct. And when it comes to picking things, we do still leverage a lot on the Xero marketplace and the reviews that come out. And we also leverage a lot on what applications have those channel partnerships and the education, both for advisors and for clients. So are you asking specifically in the spend management space, what tools we're seeing or?
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely Weel. Cape has got a similar product that's come out. But still added on to that, you still need to have your general accounts payable processing. Still seeing Dext as a huge player there. That really hasn't moved. I don't know if HubDoc has really taken over.
I don't think so. It's
clients are still using it, but it's certainly not prevalent from our accounting firm use case.
No, neither. I think the user interface of HubDoc is good, but not great. Where there are other expense management ones that are great, like Wheels Bills are awesome. There's other ones like Approval Max and ProSpend are also very good for those higher end, larger installations. I can see John O'Whittle's just asked a question, for the larger companies, 300 million turnover, 80 employees. I always say to people, convince me why you cannot be on something like Weel first. Take the most simple technology with a lower cost rollout rather than going up to the next ones, the bigger business multi-entity expense management processes. before you go up. Like, ProSpend works really well for large, NetSuite or Microsoft businesses. For international ones, Ramp is the same as kind of Weel and ProSpend, but if you've got international operations, they're pretty smooth. And I think the key thing is, in that play, Laurel, to your point, was really understanding and documenting what people do, and then seeing if that tech can actually add value, or are you just putting in tech for tech's sake?
To your points there, what challenges may business face when implementing expense management solutions?
Good question. Jun, tell me something, mate. I haven't heard your lovely voice yet.
Oh, mate. Well, I guess from the banking days, we did a lot of expense management through like Framium, and so we're probably targeting the larger corporate side. But irrespective, the same sort of problems arose. It's just adoption. Getting people to actually use what's been implemented was a challenge, especially if the process to change over isn't smooth. So I mean, like, I have less dealing in the wheels and using the other end of the market. So I mean, maybe the problem isn't as prevalent, but definitely from my side, it's just getting people to understand and use the processes and managing the implementation of it across the board. That was definitely one of the biggest, and even from modeling perspective, it's also a similar issue. It's just getting people to use the systems that you've purchased.
Yeah, very, very important point. Thank you for that, Jen. Let me move on and let's talk about revenue collection, which is the automatic collection of payments. So as we move to this topic, Mackenzie, can you launch a poll for us, please, which says, how painful is the revenue collection process in your business? So keen to see, we've got the options there, how painful that is. And please drop any comments in the chat area if you've got any comments on revenue collection. And again, we'll wait for the poll to come up, but I will initially start with you, Alex, to ask what you're seeing on the revenue collection SaaS landscape in Australia. So let's get the poll up. Smooth sailing, not painful at all.
Minor inconvenience. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's huge. compared to how painful it was a while ago. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. So
I think the pain really starts when you have to swap. Once it's up and running, the thing that's painful is what fees you end up paying. But once it's working, then there's little reason to change things, right? Which is why I imagine most people are relatively okay with how things are going.
I mean, and the automation opportunities here are just awesome. Even the base products like Xero and QuickBooks have, really nice, clean, automatic reminders. You can send out 5 with, honestly, you can set those up in about 15 minutes to go out. And if you want a bit more, I remember in law firms, we're a $50 million law firm, and we had 2 full-time debt collectors for a $50 million law firm on the phone chasing things. Some IT guy made access databases so they could record notes and all. And he was excited about taking notes that no one really read. But the possibilities there and the ease of payment. All you have to do is 2 things. You have to do your receipting right. That's the most important thing. I would say 5 out of 10 of the businesses I walk into, their receipting is wrong because they haven't paid attention to detail. So you've got to have good bookkeeping. And the second one is just use the basic automations you've got. Use Xero. Is it Data Buddy or Data Daddy or something like that? They're just awesome. You can, I'm messing the name up clearly, but there's a couple of those ones. You just add them on. They pull your data out. You can report on them. You can automate everything. I think
those are invoice tracing solutions. Those ones that you're talking about. Yeah. So in terms of the ones that automatically collect, a lot of them will do that automatic matching for you, won't they?
They get you 90% of the way there. You still have to click OK. We did. Oh, sorry, Laurel, you go.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember in a law firm, accounting firm, we were using like it was supposed to be like an automatic payment portal on our website, but every day we had to go into their portal, download a PDF, and then manually match it for like 30 payments. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, and that's where the errors came from, because the cash that came in didn't always match the report. So like those types of things, I'm really careful about what type of tech are they. Is it real automated, electronic, fully connected tech that actually does 90% of the work for you? Or is it just getting you half of the way there, and then you've still got to employ someone for an hour to manually do that process?
I might jump in on this one. This one's actually interesting for me because I was dealing in the health insurance space when I was at NAB, and a lot of the solutions that we sent, provided to the space was all around automating connections with member management systems, as well as tying that into the bank feed. So, as Tyler mentioned, one frustrating part is just that OK button on Xero. Like, so once the payment's made, you still have to confirm that it's reconciled. One way we went about it, and this, depending on the size of your business, it might work or not. But one system we implemented at NAB, it's something we call Direct Link. It's very NAB-centric. I'm sure other banks have similar platforms. But the point of the Direct Link was it directly ported into your whatever software platform you're using through a secured server. And the idea behind that is we send the file out. You as the user send your collections file. So for health insurance, this could be 40,000 premiums collected in the one go. So they would send a file through. It would go into our payment systems, and we'd do the one-off collection for all the clients. And then we'd send the message back with all the reconciliations. So that was a literal, it would, shave full FTEs as part of the process. So yes, there's great tech out there, and, like we use tech ourselves to issue invoices, collect invoices, Stripe, what have you. But sometimes, having a banking partner, because they have direct access to your banking feeds, sometimes they're worth a chat to as well. So they're not always as boring as you might think. Yeah. They can do some pretty cool stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Joan. Now, can I circle back to Alex? We went on another journey there talking about credit collection, which is an interesting journey to take. But let's talk about the SaaS solutions that are out there that can help you just automate that journey for you. Alex, could you just share with us what is on that landscape, the charge fees, et cetera, that are out there?
Yeah, so I think products like Stripe pretty much act as the infrastructure for most companies that we see across Australia and New Zealand. And the hard thing is, like, you start your company very early on, you adopt these solutions, and then as you grow and scale and you realize that the fees that you're paying for every payment, where it's like 2.75% plus 30 cents, and then even higher in some instances if you're doing international transactions like charging USD, the amount that you get charged is actually quite significant. So the entrance that we're starting to see in the space, Airwallex has started to create a solution. Braintree has also competed with a solution. But my general advice and thinking around this, it's like you don't need to be going out and trying to change these things, because it's such a disruption to the core business. Where you're probably better off thinking is there any option to negotiate or reduce these rates? So companies that are in professional services like law firms, accounting firms, etc., where the ACV or the amount that they're charging is in the thousands or tens of thousands, you can actually proactively go and negotiate those fees. You don't have to pay the off-the-shelf SaaS solution 3% that most companies play. And just by having that information, it probably saves you months of migration and sort of going into Tyler's world of going in and seeing the millions of problems that they're already facing. It's just one less thing that you probably need to think about.
Yeah. Look, yeah, it sounds awfully painful to move from them. Sorry, Laurel.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to address Alexander's and from the chat's comment about, this could be a bit better defined, and maybe break it down from the perspective of how do we look at it when we're actually selecting solutions? Because it is confusing, right? You've got your payment gateway that's actually transacting and collecting the funds, depositing into your bank account. You've got your revenue collection, which sounds like it could just be Chargebee or whatever. But the reality is a lot of people use an operations solution to collect revenue. If you're a trades person, you might use Tradeify, let's say, just to keep it simple or whatever. Released, which is a property management solution for commercial properties. They've built in a recurring payment system into their platform, which uses Stripe. And I guess my comment to it is when you're selecting is you got to look out for those forward-thinking operations solutions just as much as you need to look at your finance stuff to make sure it all flows back. Because to your point, John, once it gets back to the bank feed, how do you actually reconcile it correctly and make sure it's the right transaction? And we're seeing a lot of these ops solutions now better defining those integrations back to Xero and other accounting packages so that you're getting not just that one-way flow of it's paid, but if it's paid in Xero and you reconcile it, it can actually identify the transaction back on the other side too.
That's such a big point, Laurel. Like that if Xero can, a lot of systems like I know Workflow Max and Xero Practice Manager, you push those payments back up, but that means so much. That means you don't have to report out of Xero on payments. It pushes it back up to the operating system. Your operations team can see if something's paid or not. Trying not to have Xero as your only accounts receivable resource is such a win for the security and control as well. And you can always plug in like Power BI to Xero to report it out, but even for one business, you're probably looking at $10,000 to get that data out into a usable dashboard, plus the ongoing monthly fees to maybe a group of 10 salespeople or whoever's dealing with clients on a day-to-day basis. That payment push is incredibly important. And do you mind if I touch on, Jun, you made this really interesting point about clicking the OK button. It is so weird now in our day and age that we're not annoyed, but we're like, why can the system not click OK for me? Right? And what gets me
clients ask this all the time.
Yeah, right. I'm still working with businesses on NetSuite and those types of things, and like Microsoft Wise, like they're uploading CSVs and it's a match transaction rather than like an OK button. So like what's happened is this huge gap in the world between small and medium businesses and the automation and speed of efficiency and accuracy of bookkeeping that they can do with, a $10 million business can run on two people, like a bookkeeper and a senior accountant. Whereas if you go, one of the guys asked before about 300 million and above, like your technology stack is so far behind a business that is $50 million and below, and the ability to move and change, because like we're at this iPhone phase where we're like, OK button is annoying. They're still manually doing bank recs. They're still manually doing, like, if they're lucky, they might have automatic consolidations, So there's this big gap I'm seeing in the market at the moment. What are you seeing, John, in your thing? Because you're doing a ton of big and small.
I think that, like I said, and maybe it was industry specific, and the clients that I dealt with, like of the 34 health insurers, we looked after 24 or 28 of them. So I think what they were able to do is they gathered all the insurers together. They dealt as a single with NAB, and they said, hey, here's our problem. And the solution was ops system. So all the member managers, all they dealt with was touching the ops system. And at the end of the day, they would do all the stuff that they need on the ops system. The end of day flow would be, send all change requests, send premium collection requests for approval. Managers would approve, and all of that gets fed into our direct link channel, and then it would get pushed back to auto reconcile. And so from a member management system perspective, all they saw was the client payment request has been sent, client payment has been made or not made, and then they would be prompted to go and have a discussion. On the finance end, CFO end, all they saw was, okay, file has been uploaded, here's the authorization, and here's all the approval and audit logs. Press OK to authorize on the NAB end, press the button, away it goes.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like, don't take it that just because not all things are done to automation. Like we had automated so much of that industry. We were literally making whole teams redundant, I guess.
More valuable in their time not doing manual processing.
100%. Yes. Yes, that's right.
But like, here's an interesting one. How much did that automation would have cost? Are we talking 100, 200, 300, 500,000? What are we talking?
Yeah, you're talking in that order. Yes.
Right? So out of the box, Xero can outperform most big business systems unless they've 100%. Got people like you, which is just wild. Like, that's where Xero
100%.
and Wheels, their link is just beautiful.
Absolutely. Yep.
So Tyler's sharing more of his magic negotiation playbook there with us. Well, we were going to have a sensational conversation about spreadsheets versus reporting apps, but it looks like we've run out of time. So sorry about that. But as we come towards the end of the session, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to share with our audience one thing that they'd really like them to take away from today's session, and also how can people get in touch with you. And while you're speaking, I will pop all of your LinkedIn links in the chat area so they can connect with you there. So, but if you can go around, June, if we can start with you, one thing that you'd like everyone to take away with you, and how can people get in contact with you?
Okay, takeaway. This is probably something I was going to talk about on the spreadsheet side. It actually does link to all of what a lot of people are saying. I think the important thing to take away is do what you can with what you have, maximize and leverage what you have really well before you then start thinking about, okay, I need to step up. And when you do want to step up, then it's, get a big business case, understand what's going on in the business before you then go, okay, well, I'm ready to make that investment into the step up. And then for me, LinkedIn, email are all good channels.
Excellent. Should we go to you, Tyler?
Nice. My one takeaway would be to do your research, touch as many systems as you can. If you're doing an expense management system, touch 3. Do a demo. Salespeople would love to talk to you to show you the product. Don't waste their time. Don't be rude or dismissive, but, be really interested. If it's not a fit, feel free to say this is not a fit, but thanks. And, really touch the integrations, like connect it to your Xero, connect it to your NetSuite, see how it looks. Make sure it's really good. And LinkedIn for me. Would love to stay in touch. We love Weel. So if anyone wants a hand with that, don't hesitate to call us.
Excellent. And I have lots and lots of app demos on my YouTube channel, which you can always jump over and watch. Yeah. Alex, can we come to you?
Yes, I'll be quick. So, I think my one key takeaway in this environment, to sort of build on Tyler's point, that look at different solutions, but know that everything is generally negotiable. In this market right now, companies, and especially software companies, are way more flexible with pricing than they were 12 to 18 months ago, which means that if you're looking and trying to keep costs down, just ask the question. People feel nervous and don't want to do it. 9 times out of 10, you will get better opportunities by asking. So that's my one takeaway. And if you want to get in touch, LinkedIn's the best. And if you're also in finance, join the community that I run, financeintech.com. Thanks.
And Laurel, lucky last.
Sure. Aside from what I mentioned before around getting that really clear evaluation summary, working out how you're going to make the decision upfront, I would say for CFOs that are on this call, making sure that you're bringing in the right stakeholders and engaging with people in the beginning, engage with those operations people and understand those pain points that they have and how it relates back to collecting revenue or improving the finance side, and really engage with those people up front. And you can all connect with me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our guests for their contributions to today's session. I'd like to again thank our sponsors and everyone who assisted in the development and production of this session. I encourage you to connect with everyone on LinkedIn. I've put their contact details in the chat area. The next scheduled event at the Australian CFO Summit starts at 3 p.m, rising to the top career trajectories and critical competencies. Or the other option there is avoid insolvency, risk factors and preventative measures. So you have a few minutes to grab a cup of tea, jump into that session if that's of interest to you. Thank you for attending today's session on the topic Finance Technology ROI 2023, Where to Invest. I'm Heather Smith, and from me and my colleagues here today, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.